Hello, friends. I'm being watched by children. The noise in the background is one of my kids on a treadmill. So I wanted to take a few minutes and talk about what I think is an interesting and telling interaction I've had with Scott Wolter on Twitter over the last few days. I haven't paid much attention to him, or really anybody, in the kind of, alternative archaeology, history, rewrite the history books business recently, because like I said in my last video, I feel like it's been kind of boring. But anyway, Wolter posts this on Twitter. This picture of a leather-bound journal. It says, "Exciting and historic day. The journal arrived from Europe today and contains shocking Templars and America secrets, including the answers to the Oak Island treasure mystery. Stay tuned for huge revelations in the coming days." My immediate comment, because I'm me, was I said, sure, what does it say about fake Roman swords in there? The parallel should be obvious right away. His followers pointed out, I don't know how long it took, probably just a matter of minutes, to figure out that this antique-looking leather-bound journal is one of many, many, many such kind of fake antique-looking things that you can buy off Etsy or Amazon or whatever. So the journal itself is not old. He later goes on to say, well, we knew the journal was modern all along. It's obviously modern, but it's what's inside that's important. And he showed, there's a little picture of the pages. It looks like it's written in pencil. Looks like it's written in English. So somehow we're supposed to believe that there's a good reason to be excited about a modern leather-bound journal with modern writing in it, because obviously the writing cannot predate the journal, but those words are supposedly going to tell us something that we didn't already know. The reason I made the snarky comment about the Roman sword, the parallels will be obvious here to anybody who paid attention to Swordgate. Hutton Pulitzer holds up his sword and says this is a 100% confirmed Roman artifact, rewrite the history books, yada, yada, yada. It was only a matter of hours/days before we figured out that that sword was one of many kind of reproduction souvenir swords that you could buy sold in Italy to tourists or whatever. It's made of modern brass. And I mean, all the details took a little while to sort out. But the fact that you hold up something, a piece of material, and you say, this is going to change everything, this is it, this is the smoking gun, yada, 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 and then you can be shown to be very quickly wrong about aspects of that by people on the internet who are good at typing. So I guess one interesting point is that the internet cuts both ways. It's really easy to spread disinformation, but it's also really easy sometimes to suss out what that disinformation is. And so that's kind of the tension that's going on. Anyway, my comment about the Roman sword led him to comment back. It says, Andy White is afraid to debate me on the Kensington runestone and all the other legit pre-Columbian artifacts he knows are real. Come on, smart guy. You call yourself an academic. Accept my challenge and shut me up for good. You won't. Okay. Obviously, I've already given up on shutting Wolter up for good. My response back, and I kind of hate Twitter, the way it kind of nests all these things, so it's hard, and I find sometimes I end up commenting in the wrong thread or whatever. It's hard to keep track of who said what. So just to paraphrase, I don't remember him ever challenging me directly to a debate on the Kensington runestone. I'm pretty sure that didn't happen, so I said, I don't remember that. He said, well, I put out a debate to all academics, and it's been an open challenge. Okay, fine. Frankly, and I've told this to him several times now, I think the Kensington runestone is kind of boring. It's not boring in that it's an unimportant kind of piece of the story and how these things have played out over the last 100 years. But it's boring in terms of, a lot of the details about it have been gone over and over and over again. I did a whole section on it in my class, which I reminded him of, which, he says, I'm afraid to debate him or talk to him about the Kensington runestone. He agreed to come to my class when I was teaching it in South Carolina, and then he backed out. And this is the part that I want to talk about, because I pressed him on that. I said, you had your opportunity. You had a whole room full of students. You could have talked to whoever you want to, and you chose not to. So, you tell me. And he said that the reason he backed out was because who he calls the hate blogger, which he's talking about Jason Colavito, who writes a blog, who's gotten under Wolter's skin pretty effectively over the last years since America Unearthed. He was upset that Jason was also on the syllabus. And as I pointed out to him at the time, this was 2016, Jason was not going to be there to debate Scott on the Kensington Runestone or to sit in the front row and flex his muscles while Scott talked. That's nonsense. He was there on a totally different day, totally different topic, something about, the challenges of writing or communicating about this stuff. Jason has written several books about it. He writes a blog. He used to write daily at the time, very well read. Whatever. Scott went on, and I'm gonna find the exact quote so I don't misquote him here. He says, Scott Wolter says, "I've issued the challenge to academia," he meant publicly, "many times. I will not be associated with dishonest liars. You screwed it up by inserting a fraud without warning. Challenge issued, do you accept?" Blah, 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 blah. So he wants to, slap me with his glove. So he will not be associated with a dishonest liar. That's a statement. Bookend on that. I will not be associated with a dishonest liar. That's why he says he didn't do my class, because being on the same syllabus as Jason Colavito was being associated with a dishonest liar. So I pressed him on this because it's interesting to me. It seems really, this whole principle of I will never be associated with a dishonest liar is kind of silly if you look at Scott Wolter's past. Being on a syllabus with somebody is a really, really weak kind of association. I could assign my class 2 readings by 2 different authors who disagree, and those authors are not necessarily reflecting on each other. They're associated in a way because their names are written on the same piece of paper, but that does not reflect on them personally. It says nothing about their beliefs that I, as a professor, chose to put them both in the syllabus. So that's the level of association we're talking about. Scott Wolter has attended conferences with Nazis. Frank Collin, Frank Joseph, I actually forget which is his. Frank Collin, I believe, was his first name, and then he changed it to Frank Joseph. Now he writes about Atlantis. He was one of the leaders of the American Nazi Party. If you've ever seen the movie The Blues Brothers, where Jake and Elwood are trying to cross the bridge, and the Nazis are there, he says, "I hate Illinois Nazis." That character is based on Frank Collin, who was a convicted child molester, thrown out of this leadership position of the Nazi Party, sent to prison, got out of prison, changed his name, writes books about Atlantis, goes to all these same conferences. So Wolter's name is on the conference proceedings with that, so he's associated with him somehow. That doesn't bother him. Doesn't bother him at all, apparently. A deeper level of association. Scott Wolter went into business, formed a business partnership with Hutton Pulitzer, the Swordgate guy, who's now doing all of this fraud at election stuff. Wolter says, to his credit, in our back and forth on Twitter, that was a mistake. He thinks that the things that Pulitzer is doing now are deplorable or something like that. I won't find the exact tweet, but it's something along those lines. I think I'm being fair. I pressed him on this because when Scott Wolter chose to partner with Hutton Pulitzer, it was readily apparent to anybody who was paying attention what kind of person he was, how he behaved. He is a dishonest liar. He has lied to me. He has lied about me to others, to his followers. He has lied in letters written to my employer when I worked at the University of South Carolina in order to put pressure on me. Everybody knew that. Scott Wolter still decided to associate himself with him and associate himself with him closely. They were business partners. They had a logo. They had a hashtag. They had everything. They did appearances together. That's a close association with a dishonest liar that he made by choice. Not only that, once Hutton really became unhinged, he's putting out these ranting videos with all this homophobic content and just crazy stuff. I asked Scott Wolter about that at the time, and Wolter said, Pulitzer and I have different ways of doing things, but he's on point and you know it. You know he's right. That's a full-throated defense of that nonsense. And Scott chose to associate himself with that, to defend it. So he owns it. He owns those choices. So the real inconsistency here that I think is interesting is it's not that he doesn't associate with dishonest liars. He doesn't want to be associated with them or be around them when they disagree with him. That's the difference. Because, Pulitzer and Wolter, I'm sure they have their disagreements business-wise and in terms of, fake artifacts and all that stuff. But they both generally agree that, a bunch of Europeans were marching around the interior of the United States or North America before Columbus, yada, yada, yada. Same with your Nazi there, Frank Joseph, former Nazi. Maybe he's still a Nazi, maybe he's not. I have no way of knowing. Those are people that kind of agree with the general mindset of what's going on. They're in the kind of ancient American sphere. So it's okay to associate yourself with those dishonest liars. but not the ones that disagree with you. You can't even have your name printed on the same sheet of paper. That's an outrage. And I mean, to me, this speaks to the larger issue that I'm interested in here, because if you can't consistently and credibly describe a vision of how you interact with the world, how am I supposed to take seriously when you say I'm a credible person, believe what I say about this piece of geology or this particular artifact or what this person said? And it bothers me because there's evidence. There are tweets and interactions and emails. They go, you know what? Either this has to be true or this has to be true. Neither one looks good on you. They both can't be true. So you pick. And you say, well, that's the past. We don't talk about that anymore. Sorry, but it actually matters. You know, and I asked him why he didn't take a position on the sword. The sword was obviously this fake brass sword was Hutton Pulitzer's thing. And that was ongoing when they started their partnership. And Walter says, well, I just wasn't interested in it. You got to be kidding me. Here's a claim. You're going into partnership with a guy who says this is the 100% confirmed artifact that's going to change everything. In what universe do you not take a position on that? Either you think the artifact is bogus and you go into business with the guy anyway, option one, or you think the artifact is legit, option two. Neither of those look good on you. The artifact is obviously fake. It is as fake as those quote-unquote Templar journals are modern. If you go into business with a guy who's peddling these fake things, you got to own that. I'm sorry. When I've asked Scott for other pieces of evidence besides the Kensington Runestone, one of the things he brought up was the Tucson lead artifacts. If you look at these, they're cast out of lead. The story is so very weak. He says these have clear, good context or unimpeachable context. I don't remember exactly what he said. There's a cast lead sword or a knife or something that has a incised picture on it that these guys want to claim is a lizard. It's a dinosaur. He says, well, it can't be a dinosaur because it has a forked tongue. People back in the 30s, when these artifacts were found, I forget the exact date, but it's somewhere back in there, that's how they depicted dinosaurs. So whoever scratched a dinosaur onto this lead thing thought that they were being, pretty accurate. But that's the level of artifacts we're accepting as okay to kind of weave into the story. So yeah, sure, let's this brass Roman sword, which we know to be modern. Let's have this lead thing with an inscription copied from a book in the 1930s. If that's kind of what you're allowing in the pile of stuff that looks pretty good, then that's why the Kensington Runestone gets tainted. This is an artifact that people have talked about for a long time. A lot of legitimate scholars have argued about and thought about, and I think it's really interesting. But why would I want to have that conversation? If you can't agree that this brass sword is a fake piece of crap and this lead thing with a dinosaur on it doesn't count for evidence, then what are we even talking about here? It's a bunch of nonsense. So anyway, one thing I like about my role is I'm straightforward with you guys. I will call it like I see it, tell it how I see it. I don't have to keep remembering what I said in the past. Scott Walter says he's challenged me, and it's I don't remember challenging you. He said I called him a racist. I don't remember calling him a racist. It's not hard to keep my story straight because I'm acting honestly and truthfully. And whatever, man. I've told him that if you want to have a bigger conversation, we can try to set up some ground rules about how that would work. That's fine. I think he wants to debate me on the Kensington Runestone because he thinks I don't know anything about geology, and I'm not a trained geologist, so he thinks he can win. He doesn't want to debate other people who have stronger opinions and have actually looked at the stone, who have a geological background, probably because he thinks he can't win. Same reason probably he didn't want to be, he felt so threatened by being in the quote-unquote same room with Jason Colavito, as he felt like he would be challenged in a way that would be difficult for him to maneuver his way out of. Whatever, that's up to him to explain all that stuff. But as usual, the personalities and the way they work with each other are interesting, but ultimately it's about the material evidence. I'm an archaeologist. That's what we deal in. Scott says, oh, well, we'll just let the facts speak. It's the facts. Well, the facts don't speak for themselves. They need to be interpreted. They need to be evaluated by humans, by people. And I'm always willing to change my view on something if it can be shown that that's the correct thing to do. There are a lot of interesting aspects to the Kensington runestone. I remain super, super skeptical because there's no way for me that it has met the burden of being eliminated as something that could be fake. And there are a lot of reasons to think it is fake. There's a lot of contextual reasons, historical reasons, and reasons having to do with its intrinsic characteristics, the language on it, the geology, etc. And it doesn't have reliable provenience at all. One guy saying I dug this up, that means absolutely nothing in terms of archaeology. If this conversation continues with Scott, I'll make another video, but I'm going to cut this one off right now and move on with the rest of my Saturday. I saw all the pictures of snow that my friends got down in South Carolina, so I hope you guys stocked up on bread and milk. Super important when the snow is coming. You got to get a lot of bread, and you got to get a lot of milk. I mean a lot of milk. You know, if there's milk on the shelf, you take it. You take it. It's Thunderdome out there. Stay safe, everyone.